All right. Okay. I think we're good. Talk from me, Eric.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
There we go. All right.
Turn me
Okay,
up.
so we are on our man. How many chapters are there? Are we? I feel like we're close. Are we like 2 chapters away from being done after this one, or
Yeah,
one
we're on
chapter?
it's 8.
This is 8. There's 10.
Yeah, there's 2 more left. Man, it's been a good. It's been a good 10 weeks. This has been a good. It's been a really good book. I think maybe my favorite book we've read this year so far. Could be because we're doing it slower, but it's I won't tell Ryan that. It's been good. So all right, week 8 of Why Do I Do What I Don't Want to Do, and we're talking about busyness and rest. Now, if I had started off, just kind of this by asking you if you felt like you were a busy person or how you viewed busyness before you read this chapter, what would your kind of response or whatever have been to that?
If you're not busy, w- you're obviously not trying.
Okay, that's good. Brandon, Eric, anything different? Same.
Go ahead, Brandon.
I just think I have been too busy this year.
Okay.
and neglected, you know, things like this, spending more time in the Word.
Okay. So you would just say, then your own life, you were convicted before you even started the chapter. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Eric.
I feel like I'm better with the busyness part. I don't always have to be busy, but I think the harder part of this chapter for me was the rest part. I feel like something always coming at me, something new and unexpected
Uh-huh.
that I don't necessarily want.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I guess the rest part would be the bigger part of this chapter for me.
Gotcha. Okay. So for me, I would say that I'm in maybe the busiest season of ministry that I've ever had, which is saying a lot because summer in student ministry is always crazy and whatnot, but this is just the most wide ranging. And so I've actually been looking forward to this chapter a bit just because I felt very tired. I've sent y'all some texts over the last week just of kind of this level of exhaustion and overwhelmness that I've had. And so I think though that I've always taken it more like Corey, like a sense of pride. That busyness equals, which we'll talk about. That busyness equals godliness. And this chapter really kind of pushes against that. So, what does your week look like in your job? So, kind of, he started off talking about kind of how a week works. You know, you got this meeting on this day, then you got this thing on this day. Like, what does a normal week look like for you guys in terms of just the busyness of work, like just work, family, things like that?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. I mean, just work wise. So I'm in a large corporation. I manage 13, 14 people under me, and just every day I'm getting up. Well, getting up at 5:30 every day, getting the kids ready for school, taking them to school. Getting back home at about 7:30, and jumping around on the computer and getting dozens and hundreds of emails a day, getting complaints from clients every day, drama from my direct reports every day. That goes to about 5. I try to end around 5.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So your work day is
and then
typically 7:30 to 5 ish.
yeah, and then I just and then after that, the kids are needy for dinner and playtime. So
Yep. And do you work at home or are you in an office?
80% at
both?
home.
80%
80%
home.
at home.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, for me, work has fluctuations of busyness. I mean, in my position, being the only person that does what I do, so it stays pretty consistent. But there's some downtimes throughout the year. Our work kind of is seasonal. Working with churches, like right now, it's going to be a little bit slower because churches are not really focused on buying right now media. So that doesn't keep me like super busy. I can do pretty good at leaving the office and kind of shutting down as far as the disconnect there, and they're pretty good about like intentionally doing that, allowing us to have that time. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, I have a few things that I do consultant wise for a few different clients. I mean, that keeps me busy most weeks. I think trying to be intentional about spending time with the kids is something that probably gets neglected more than it should. And I know they feel it certain weeks. I can tell that they feel it just when things are really busy. So I think that's from the conviction side of it. I think that's one of them is trying to make sure that the priorities are set properly.
Okay, good. What about you, Corey? What's a normal week look like for you?
Fully remote, so it's pretty awesome. I usually wake up pretty close to the time that I get online,
That's awesome.
which is 7 o'clock, and then I work till about 4. And I think most people can relate that most days seem to consist of meetings and then trying to figure out how to actually get work done in between meetings. The nice thing is about the company that I work for is that they do take pretty serious, like once you're done with work, like just stop. I mean, there's in our, I'm a systems administrator, so we have what are called on-call sessions. So I'm currently on call. So if something breaks, if something catastrophic happens, I'm on call I have to respond, but we cycle that out. So technically, if anything happens, I'd have to help, get back online. But after 4, just like everybody else, 2 kids, I spend time with them. Allow my wife to do her work. We go to the park. We make meals, so on and so forth. And then that's bedtime is usually around 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then a little bit of me and Sarah time to hang out and talk and watch shows, and then whatever happens after that happens.
Yeah.
Maybe Call of Duty.
All right. Yeah, that's good. For me, I think the for me a normal week is, we have a couple of set meetings. That we have a staff meeting on Tuesday afternoons at church, and we'll do some other things, but for the most part, I have a Wednesday lunch I do typically every other week. That's important to me, and so I am always kind of flexing. My days and weeks are never the same, which I actually really enjoy. The one time I worked at a job that it was very routine, I hated it with a passion. I always wanted to work in a cubicle, and I did, and I hated it. Every part of it, and so so I enjoy the kind of the freshness of it. But I would say that the challenge of working in a church is it's like this with every job, right? There's always things to do, but I don't, and I don't know if I can just leave it at work very often. Because it's, we're kind of on call 24/7, and so that just doesn't, that kind of gets into your mentality that you always have to be available, that you always are available. And so if there's things to be done, you should do it. And so, he kind of talks about in 157 just this ability to focus on the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And for me, I do well at that. So like in this busyness season, I tend to get pretty dialed in and just like, okay, let's do this thing, let's do this thing, let's do this thing, and just kind of keep focusing on the next thing. But that's what a typical kind of week looks like for me. How would, so he kind of talks about, and I'll let you guys add some other input here on things that you kind of stood out to you in the chapter, but he talks about a little bit later in this section of the busyness is the enemy of, and he kind of started out with at first encouragement, and then as he talked to his staff, it was, well, it's more than just that, it's all these other things. And as you guys read that, how would you finish that sentence, that for you busyness is the enemy of what? Like, what is that for you? In case you need a reminder, it's top of 159.
I put peace, but he actually mentioned that later in the book.
Yeah.
I think later in the chapter. I didn't read ahead, so I
Yeah.
thought that was in that he kind of said the same thing as me.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think peace is a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brandon?
I mean, it's in the book, but I think relationships is probably one for me.
Yeah, which is kind of what you were describing earlier.
Yeah.
For me, I put busyness is the enemy of ministry, which is funny because ministry is what keeps me busy, but it would be, I get busy doing tasks that ultimately don't matter. So what I put here was like true ministry. It's caring for people, like that I can't take that lunch, or I get annoyed in that phone call, or what is more often for me is I'm sitting there staring at someone at church on a Sunday morning as they're having a conversation, and I'm looking at them, but man, my mind is darting 100 different directions because I'm thinking about, well, I need to go check on this class. I need to go do this. I need to go do this. Man, dial it in, John. Stay focused. Stay focused. Okay, wait, no, I got to go do this. I got to go do it. Like, it's just Sunday morning is not a good day to find me a lot of times because it's hard. So I think for me, busyness is gets in the way for me for just general ministry sometimes. So, and I think that's, in your own life, what have you seen busyness rob you of when you get into when you can reflect on a season or a time that's too busy? What have you found that it cost you? Maybe in your marriage, or as a parent, or at work, or things like that.
For me, it just adds frustration that really shouldn't be there. So I don't respond to things like I should sometimes.
Yeah, so like for me as an example, I have this problem where if I know, we're hosting somebody or friends coming over, like my house everything has to be clean. And if it's not, it's gonna bug me up until the moment that they get here. And then even when they're here, I'm still in my mind like, I don't like, how are they viewing I don't know. It
Uh-huh.
almost robs all the enjoyment of actually having, people over and having fun.
Yeah.
There a
I
Yeah.
don't
story
know if
about
anybody,
that?
I was gonna say, so
people,
Mary and Martha's gonna fit really well for you, huh?
but like it's
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Golly, that felt very personal. Could have just wrote Mary and Corey
Yeah,
as a
that's
part of
right.
that. Good, good, good. Which we'll get to that story in a little bit. Um, that's good.
funny.
That's good. For me, I think robs me of probably what I enjoy the most and what feeds me the most. And which is just relationships. That's what I kind of thrive on, and it robs me of all of that because it takes me away from it. I get too focused on, like you said, Corey. I get focused on all the things I need to do. Therefore, when I am with people, whether that's kids, wife, work, whatever, I don't focus on those people. I focus on all the things that I could be doing with that time instead of that. So now he talked about busyness is a sin. I guess first, would anybody disagree with that? And we'll kind of define it here in a minute. But anybody disagree with that statement?
I would say before reading this and like the way he laid it out, I wouldn't have never actually considered it a sin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I thought it would be like almost not necessarily the opposite, but like
Yep.
I am utilizing my time and putting forth my gifts to actually do what I was created to do. Not saying that my
Yep.
purpose is to help people's computers work properly, but using
Right.
a
Right.
gift I feel like I was given. But I don't think I was thinking of it in the right mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that too. And I think ultimately that what he said in 159, which is it's one of those sins that we have let creep in and become so mainstream that we don't even see it as a big deal. I think that's what you're describing, Corey. That's how I feel. Is what I kind of wrote is that I use it as a badge of honor. Like if someone will say, "Well, how's church? Busy." How's life? It's really good. It's busy though. I think for me, so often I've used it as to try and let people, and he talks about this in the book, but let people think I'm more important than I am, or for me, it's more spiritual than I am. That I'm trying to come across as more spiritual. Oh well, work is so busy right now. Well, it's busy doing things that ultimately don't have a huge kingdom impact. It's Photoshop and it's website design. It's all these things that are good and that are important, but that's not real ministry, and that's not things that ultimately will change somebody's life. Therefore, I need to. I got to kind of do that. But I think I've struggled with wearing it as a badge of honor for me. I know Corey said that. Brandon and Erica, have y'all struggled with that yourselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. When you feel like you're not busy, you feel like you should be. For me.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good.
I kind of get to a point where if I'm not busy, I almost enjoy it because I don't want something to
Yeah.
come up.
It's been really
Um,
fun getting to see Eric. Like I don't really know Eric outside of this, but every time there's like a question like this, and we're all like, "Yes,
Yeah, we
we
struggle
have to
with
be
it.
Eric is the exact opposite.
Every time.
Like,
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am different than y'all, but that's good though for these.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is
all
good.
these things, right?
It is good in these discussions. It is, and it does fit with his personality. Like it
Yeah.
it fits really good. It fits really good. Okay, so what else stood out in that part of it? I have a couple more things, but what else stood out for you guys in that section? A permissible sin.
oh, towards the bottom of 160, when you're talking about how busy you are, and then it's more like, well, I didn't actually manage my time well.
Mm.
I didn't say no to some things. I got
Mhm.
myself into situations that I'm now projecting onto you. So it's not like It's like I'm pretending I'm super busy because I'm really important, but really, it's poor time management. It's
Yeah.
not prioritizing what I should be focusing on and
Yeah.
taking on stuff that I really have no business trying to take on.
Yeah, that man, I highlighted that. That was
Yeah.
convicting. Was it was No, busyness is my problem, not your problem. So the fact
Mhm.
that I don't have time for you, or that, and I've always heard this like with being late too, right? That being late isn't like it that's a decision that you make to not get ready on time. And there are obviously times outside of your control, but then most of the time it's because you didn't start getting ready on time. Most of the time it's because you chose to not, make an adjustment for that, for traffic or for whatever. So I shouldn't get mad at people when I'm running late and there's traffic and people cut me off, and I'll be like, "Hey, that's on you, John. Like, you should have been here 10 minutes earlier, whatever." And I see this in a lot of the same way that I got myself into that situation. Yeah, I totally agree. What you, Eric, Brandon?
I would say on that third paragraph, maybe this kind of relates to what Brandon was saying too about relationships, and I feel it too. When we are moving fast, we don't love people well. And when I'm
Mm-hmm.
busy, what falls off first is kindness, and that kind of what I was saying earlier about my patience, my frustration level kind of raises up when I'm not able to rest. And I feel too busy.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly what I was describing about me as this Sunday struggle. Like, I can look at you in the eyes, but man, I have to work so hard to stay focused on what you're saying. And I
I
tell
felt
people
it,
all the
John. I
time,
felt it.
yeah,
I
yes,
felt
and
it
it's
from you.
and it's not intentional. It's just
I know.
it's this like, I've got things that I need to do, and I have to intentionally remind myself to slow down, to be present, to be, whatever. And actually, the Sundays I do best are Sundays that I'm preaching, because everybody knows I can't do anything else for them. I can't help in any other area, in any other way. So I'm out, and you have to take care of it yourself. And it's those Sundays that I get to just enjoy the most, because I'm not stressed. I know when I go up on stage, I know when I'm coming off, I know that there's nothing I can do about anything else happening in the meantime. So I'm more kind of relaxed on those Sundays, which is really nice. We always laughed for years that we call it, for me, event mode. That as we get close to like a main, especially in student ministry, like a major event, a Disciple Now camp, that Krista would tell people, don't talk to him. It's not like, nothing in my brain stays there. It is all focused on the things that I need to do. And again, not all of that's bad, but that if it gets in the way of being able to do other things, it can be. So, what about you, Brandon?
I mean, just kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's at the end of that section where he says we have to discipline ourselves to say no to all sorts of things, even good things, because busyness is a tool of the enemy. A tool
Mm-hmm.
the enemy will use to kill our intimacy with Jesus. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's just something I tend to do often, is not saying no to doing things, even the good things. I need to learn that it's okay to not try to maximize every minute that I have in ways that I think are the most effective, and put off the things that really need the attention.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I've learned, and I'd be curious if how y'all respond to busyness, but for me, it's one of two responses. I either get super hyper focused to where I get really dialed into what I'm trying to do, and I just get locked in, and I can stay that locked in for 4 6 hours or whatever, but I'm dialed in. I don't want anything else, no distractions, no nothing, and I get things done. And then on the other side, that sometimes if it becomes too busy, and the lists get too far spread and too wide and too big, I get overwhelmed and I just kind of shut down. How do you guys kind of respond to busyness in your own life?
I'll say that I'm the same way most times, but it's the business that I can control. I get really locked in, dialed in.
That's good.
I'm a task executor. I do it, one by one. But then if it's business that I can't control, it's very stressful.
Yeah, that's good.
It's definitely the time that's harder to endure.
Yeah, I'd say the exact same, but probably mixing a little bit of anger in there
Yeah,
for me as well.
yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, me too.
It's usually directed at myself, because it's usually something that I was like, if I would have done this a month ago, I wouldn't be dealing with this. But because I procrastinate, now I'm having to deal with this, and then I start questioning all of my choices. And then I'm like, I should just go live on an island because I serve no purpose.
Yep. Eric, how about you?
I mean, I don't really have anything to add what Brandon said. He just said it pretty well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's me, and like I said, that part that I highlight, I don't know, I mostly mark in pen, but this one I highlighted that thing that you said earlier, Corey. I got myself in this situation, and now I'm projecting it onto you. Just need to remind myself of this is not somebody else's fault. This is my fault, or this is something under my control. So, all right. So I didn't have a ton in the next section, but let's just kind of look at the next two or three sections where it says tale of two reactions. Busyness robs you of your focus, of your empathy, of your peace, and your joy. What are some things that stood out to you in any of those kind of four sections there?
Oh, one for me, empathy.
Mm.
Robs you of empathy. Specifically, it says you see the task on your plate as more important than what others are doing. And I do this, I want to say all the time because I don't want to make myself sound like I'm a terrible person.
No,
I'm
no,
somewhat
I get it.
okay.
I get it.
No, man, like if I'm going through something and then I hear, like Sarah tells me that one of her friends or whatever, oh, her boyfriend or this person's girlfriend, I was like, in my mind, they're single. Like like they don't even have kids. Like their problems, like it's
Their
so
problems
bad
don't matter anymore.
because my problems are so
Uh-huh,
important, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Brandon, Eric.
Yeah, didn't really have much until on the bottom of 165,
Mhm.
where it says if our capacity to serve those around us is hindered by our own productivity, we have bought into the lie that our business is a badge of honor
Mhm.
connected to our importance. That's a really good summary of this whole chapter.
Yep.
And what Corey was just saying, and what you've been saying, John. You know, being busy or having things to do doesn't necessarily make you better or more important than
Mhm.
someone else at that moment, because you don't know what they're going through.
Right. Yeah,
Type
that's
thing.
good. That's good. What about you, Brandon?
For me, I think something they said when he's talking about Mary and Martha at the end of it, he says that Martha was distracted with Jesus right in front of her. Martha's mind was elsewhere, and I feel like when I'm in those busy modes, that's absolutely me. I'll go to church on Sunday, and my mind is
Yeah.
1,000 miles away. Versus we're hearing the gospel right in front of us, and that's just not even resonating with me because my mind is so disconnected from where I am because I'm thinking through other things I'm going to be doing later that day or maybe that Monday into the next week. I think busyness is a big distractor in that sense for me. Even in the situations where I feel maybe like when I'm overwhelmed because I feel so busy, it distracts me from where I need to pull the strength to go through those times as well. So like my natural reaction is not like, oh, I need to get with Jesus on this and start identify what I need to do through this busy season. But I'm a task guy. It's okay. I got a lot to do. I'm gonna think about that and get it all done and figure out how.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with that so much that I'm the same way where I just get focused on these other things and it just pulls. I don't know if I talked about it on the stream before, but that Sunday mornings for years were hard for me because I would sit in the sermon and sit in the service and I just couldn't worship. I didn't get anything from the sermon, not because I didn't enjoy being there, but because I would use that as, I'm in my office, right? I'm at work. And so for me, worshiping was really difficult on Sundays because I would just let my mind go to, okay, well, I've got to teach this here pretty quick, or I'm looking over my notes for this, or I got to make sure I've got this meeting set up for tonight and in all the things. And I had a friend really kind of challenge me on it. And more so, he was disappointed. He goes, man, I look forward to it. Sunday is the day that I look forward to the most because it's when I get refreshed. It's when I get encouraged and lifted up. And I was like, well, that's nice. As a pastor, like that should be me too. And it was just this realization go, no, that's my own fault. That there's no reason I can't stop and be still. And in a lot of Sundays, I have to slow down and I have to stop myself and to go, okay, pause, take a breath, and just be present here. All the stuff will still be there. The questions will still be there. You'll be fine, but just take your moment now. So I think for me, that's something I've really, really tried to work hard on. And I enjoy Sunday morning services more now than I probably ever have because I feel like I can actually worship. Uh, and again, sometimes I have to be intentional about it, but I feel like I've finally gotten there. So that's good, Brandon. That's really good. What about you, Eric? Oh, wait. Did you already say, you already said something, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
did, but
Listen.
I mean, I had the last thing I had for the peace and joy section on the 167 was that very last sentence about priorities. We have prioritized so many wrong things, and we have let the enemy steal our joy in the process. Like sometimes I look forward to having nothing
Mm-hmm.
just so, but when I get that rest, what do I do with that rest?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the prioritization of rest time and what I do during rest time, I think is something I need to get better at.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally agree, and I definitely want to spend some time talking about that in a minute because I think that's that to me is where I think I've been challenged and grown over the last couple of years that, or at least maybe not even the last couple of years, maybe in the last like 6 months to a year that I feel like I've gotten better at. Okay, so for me, kind of before we leave this section, I have on 164, we leave ourselves open to distractions. He's talking about phones in a meeting, and we leave ourselves open to distraction, and it robs us of our ability to be fully present with the people closest to us. That's kind of the two things we at this when we moved houses that we don't our where we eat is not right near where the TV is. So for years we just with our kids we watched TV while we would eat, and again it was fun. We'd watch Dude Perfect, we'd watch all sorts of stuff, right? It was a good time. But then as the girls got older, it became easier for me to turn that on so that I could get on my phone and I could watch a show that I wanted to watch or something, and I would disconnect from them. And so at the house we have now, we eat dinner together and we eat it in a room, and we go through what we call peaks and valleys of everybody goes around in a circle. We share the peaks of the day and the valleys of every day. And it's this really cool thing that's allowed me to be present. And I've it's like by doing that, I've seen how much I actually enjoy that with my kids and how good that is. But the phone thing, I just want to say is because this was something that a little throwaway thing I probably saw on YouTube or Instagram or something years ago. But there was a TED Talk, I think is what it was, and this guy, this comedian, this whoever it was leading this TED Talk, was talking about how pretentious we are to go, oh, we have our phone out at a meeting. What does everybody do? They go to a lunch meeting, they set their phone on the table face up, right? Then you have the people that are just super important and they turn the phone upside down. Like, how special are you that they flip the phone upside down? Man, I've never been more convicted by that statement in my entire life, because I go to meetings with people all the time and I always pull up my phone. It's not always. And his whole point was, what are you showing them? Like, you're showing them that, hey, listen, I'm here with you, but this device is also here with you. So if something more important comes up, it's going to take precedent over you. And he just talked about how that immediately creates a disconnect from people. And as I've started to watch it myself, I go, oh, no, it does. And as I've tried to try and be intentional about not pulling my phone out or not doing the, flipping upside down, that's not really that special. Like, it's just, you're worth a little bit more than right side up, but you're still not worth me putting it in my pocket. And so I think that, again, that was something that I saw years ago that really kind of challenged me.
The only thing with that is, like, I hate my phone in my pocket. So anytime I'm sitting down,
Yeah.
I take it out.
Yep.
Like at restaurants, I take it out, I put it on the table because I don't want it in my pocket though.
Yep.
You know.
Why?
But
okay, no. So let's kind of run this out, because I totally agree, and I'm the exact same way. I hate to sit on it, and I don't like it in my front pocket. Either, because phones are so big these days. But could we leave it in the car?
wow, you could.
Could
But then
you?
I'd have to leave my watch in the car too, because I'd still get notifications.
No. I think that's fine, right? I think it's again, I'm looking for notifications. One of the things I'm working to do, because we've talked about this as a staff too, is how do we let people know that we're unreachable, and especially like if I take a day off. Nobody knows I take a day off. So I get text messages from church members, or, hey, can we do this? Or can you do this for me, or whatever? They don't know I have the day off. I don't advertise that everywhere. So how can I protect that time and set up, those away notifications and all the things, the do not disturb stuff that sends them a message. And ultimately, an extra hour is not going to kill anybody unless it's my wife, and then I want to make sure I'm ready to answer that, but I can let her stuff through. So, but I think it's a challenge. I think in today's world of this over connectedness, that the challenge is how do we then disconnect, which ultimately, and he goes into the problem is not about margin, which, certainly add anything to that. But then he gets into this idea of rest. And ultimately, I kind of want to park there for a minute, because what have you guys learned about rest over the years? How have you grown and matured in your understanding of rest? Or, again, maybe you're still learning how you rest, and things of that nature. But how have you seen your view of rest change over the years, or, where is it at right now?
That's a tough question to answer, and
Okay.
I think for me, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I think I've seen the value in it
Mm.
more than, especially with kids. Just knowing that, like, even sometimes they need the rest, whether it's
Mhm.
just calmness at the house, just not, having activity after activity after activity, and sometimes the whole family, the whole house needs rest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Something that I thought was interesting, something that Sarah had saw, she was telling me about. I feel like you could also get like bits and pieces of rest, not just like dedicating time, but like little bits and pieces, even spending time with your kids. So like as an example, like in the past, when, we're doing something and my son wants to help me, I'm like, let me just do it because it's gonna be quicker. I don't have to clean up after you. I'm just gonna do
Yeah.
it, just be done with it. And then really, Sarah's like, she had saw something where it was talked along the lines of, maybe God's way of getting you to slow down and be more in the moment is to actually let your children do these activities with you. Yes, it's going
Mhm.
to take longer. It's going to make a mess, but you're also making memories. It's forcing you to slow down and actually be there in the moment. And to me, that's kind of like resting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that, and I think that's probably where my view of rest has changed. I saw rest as doing nothing for a long time, and there is a reality to that. There's a reality to um, physically resting after a busy season where you do nothing, right? Where you physically take a significant amount of rest. But ultimately, that's not what Proverbs is describing when it talks about rest. Rest doesn't mean laziness, and I think that's something that's a challenge that has been a challenge for me over time. Is rest doesn't mean sitting around and just sitting on the couch and watching movies all day. That's not rest. That's just laziness. And so, what with you guys? How do you rest? You come out of a busy season, or maybe in a moment you are very overwhelmed at work or in life or at home, and you need a quick glimpse. You just need a quick rest and a quick like reset. Or maybe you come out of a busy season and you need a period of rest. Like Corey described, maybe it's a moment. How do you guys find yourself rested? And to define rest, is I love what he says in here on 172, that the word rest is more complex than just physical rest. But ultimately, it's this idea of, and I love in Psalm 62, and I marked it several times, is that David talks about when he finds rest, it's in God. And so by resting, I'm being fulfilled. Spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, it's those things that I'm being drawn towards God's. It's a more holy thing than just physical rest. That there's so much. I think it's ultimately being in His purpose, um, and resting in Him, and being present with Him as a part of it. So, how do you guys do that?
I mean, part of it for us, I guess, is clearing the calendar. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's for us. That's step one. Is just trying to be intentional about making time to rest.
Okay, so what do you mean by that? So clearing the calendar. How many nights a week do you guys have stuff? You have older kids like I do, like Eric does. How
Mhm.
many nights a week do you guys have stuff planned? You know.
Yeah, I'd say so during right now not as much, but I would say during a
Yep.
normal season, so including like sports and things
Yep.
like that. Hold on, let me think. Yeah, like we have home groups on Tuesday nights. We have
Mhm.
our middle son, he's got a guitar practice on
Uh-huh.
Wednesdays and Thursdays. Usually is a practice of some sort for sports.
Uh-huh.
Friday, sometimes a game, sometimes not. So Fridays are the days that sometimes we have open. Saturday's games, church on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Monday, sometimes we have something, sometimes we don't.
Yeah. So
Most evenings. So
clearing the calendar for y'all is just the nothing that you don't do
yeah.
anything. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, same. Same for us. Yeah. Eric, Corey, how do y'all rest?
I would say my calendar is more busy than theirs. I only have really nothing on Tuesday nights. Um, but I mean, just for me, my first goal to start rest is to get away from any electronics or
Hmm.
social media, and even sometimes away from people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if that's not, even if that's my family,
Yep.
that's even if that sounds bad, but I mean, I always make sure they're good.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, yeah. You
I
don't
just
abandon them. I know you know you don't abandon them, but no, I think that's no. I think that is exactly. Yeah, I think that's huge.
like going to doing sports, going to the gym, going for a walk,
Mm-hmm.
doing getting away, do some music. I mean, yeah,
Yeah. So for you, is to get fit. Typically, it's to get physically away from technology and sometimes people, just to be and in that moment, what do you do? Do you is it because it's not always about sitting
I
in
mean, it can be.
solitude is sitting in solitude
Yeah,
and
no, it's
reading your
not.
Bible,
No,
but
but
it's different
you know, a
things.
lot
It
of
might
it's
be
just
working out, it might be
yeah,
playing
just to
music.
change of scenery
Yeah.
and something that's not getting to something that's not that where others don't rely on you, I guess, or
Mm,
that's not important to others. Like it's just something you or your family like to do, and it's not crucial.
yeah.
Something else. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does.
there's not a timeline or a deadline or
Yep.
some response that you're responsible for. I don't know.
That's really good. No, 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 that's I understand that completely. That's really good. What about you, Corey?
Um, I, I don't. So I guess the question. So I'm trying to figure out how to answer this
Yeah.
question. So resting as in I'm just by myself and
No,
nobody is
what do you
around,
get? No,
or
no, no, because I think it's about being fulfilled,
yeah,
right? And so
okay,
it doesn't have to be uh by yourself. It could be with somebody else. It could be doing something else. But what is that? Again, it might. I think we talked about like it might even be this book club as a part of
yeah,
like you set time aside to do this thing and you get spiritually fulfilled and kind of reset through that. Like what does that look like to kind of reset for you in a busy time or season?
okay. Um, yeah, definitely the book club. That it helps me out a lot. But I would also say, honestly, I so every Tuesday my son has tumbles. It's like gymnastics, but for like
Yep.
little kids. And so that's me and him. We go out, we do that. We usually go out to eat after that. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
like me and him.
That's cool.
I just anytime I get to like spend one-on-one time with him,
Yep.
whether it's going to the park or just getting out and going and doing something and sharing these experiences with him, for me that's just rest.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think it's great too because it's again it's what do you we all find enjoyment of all these different things, but like Eric said, sometimes you just need that change of pace, and what does that look like? For me, I think that I've learned I used to wear this Whoop band, which like track sleep and all this sort of stuff, and it was what was fascinating was how I learned how important sleep was to my physical preparation for the next day, because it would tell me like, oh, you're about to have a crappy day, and sure enough, like I did. And it was this fascinating thing where if I woke up in a green zone, I woke up feeling great, and it was always correlated to me with physical sleep. So part of it for me is learning, like, if I start to get overwhelmed, I need to make sure that I'm going to bed early. I need to make sure that I'm resting physically. But for me, it's I typically rest in two ways these days. I actually learned this at when I worked at DealTrack, because we would take walks. It was Brandon and I think, because I don't even think Ryan was still there at that point. But we would just walk around the property and just take a lap. And so in this particular season at church, it's been hard, and it's a lot, and we've been dealing with a lot, and I've been putting a lot on my and I've been have a lot put on my shoulders. And so I've told our kind of administrative assistant, I go, I'm just going to take a lap. And what that means is I'm just going to go walk the property by myself. I don't want anybody to talk to me. Sometimes I'll listen to music. Sometimes I'll walk and I'll pray. Sometimes I'll just walk, and I just need to take a lap around the property. And she kind of knows that's when I need that. That's my kind of too much. And if she sees me getting overwhelmed, she has the right to tell me to go take a lap. So that's part of it for me. And then the other part for me is just to take a breath. I'm not like a meditation kind of guy, but there is reality to the way that God designed our bodies and the breath that we have, and that if I will slow my breath, we've talked so much over this year about how I'm a go, like quick, think quick, move quick, do quick, all that kind of stuff, that if I will slow down, and if I'll breathe slower, take deep breaths, kind of slow my rhythm down, it helps. And worship music for me is the other thing. I just need to turn on worship music and just kind of chill. So those are some ways that I do it. But now, what else? What else stood out to you from this? It could be with the margin part. It could be the rest part. It could be the yoke part. What are kind of some final thoughts or things that stood out in this chapter?
Yeah, it really is just the rest thing, because you know, looking back, rest for me was just sleep or not doing anything, and and now when he laid it out, it just a lot of different ways you can rest with actually doing stuff.
Yep.
So I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Our teaching pastor, when he went through Proverbs, he kept pushing this idea, or this reality that rest, it doesn't equal laziness, and to rest doesn't have to be to do nothing. Sometimes it does, like Brandon said. Sometimes we just need nothing, but that rest can be doing something if you're fulfilled. Brandon, Eric.
I had one thing, but it's kind of a tangent
Mm-hmm.
that my mind took me on. So Eric, if you have anything that's more in line with what.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Most
So
Eric
on
answer ever.
164, where he's talking about your spiritual growth, and he says you are responsible for your own spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
That sentence there really took me down a rabbit hole on just how I've approached this entire book, and the things, like the challenges that it's brought, the areas of growth that are needed in my life, but the fact that no one's going to do that for me. And I read or listened to this YouTube guy. He's a web developer, but he was talking about imposter syndrome, and when you feel like you're not growing as fast as you want to, or everybody else is growing faster than you are. One of the things that he says is, don't ever compare yourself to anybody else. Don't compare your work to anybody else's work. Compare you to you a month ago. Compare you to past you. As long as there's progression there, then that's all you need to worry about. And I think just over the course of the everything we've talked about in this book so far, I think that's one of the things that I'm getting out of it, is that only I'm responsible for my own spiritual growth. But I tend to have that really weighty on me of like, well, I need massive strides every time, and understanding that sometimes it's just little bits here, and it's consistency. It's just repetition. It's as long as I'm in a stronger point now than I was a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. That's progression, and that's really what matters.
That's good. That's good. And I needed to hear that. That comparing it to myself, I often in ministry the same way. Like I compare myself to other pastors, I compare myself to other people, and all the time, and nothing good. Either that leads to pride of, oh, I'm better than this guy, or it most often leads to the self doubt of I'm not good enough, and I'm not, it's just and which then creates this desire to be busier, to do more, to achieve more. And that's not it. I just, I've really, really been challenged. I feel like by God, I'm so ready to get rid of my Apple Watch, and just to slow down and be disconnected a bit more, and to just try and take life slower. And for me, as I'm, potentially stepping into a more leadership role at our church, trying to think about what does church look like less busy. What does it look like? Because ultimately what I'm going to present to our elders in February is that relationships, this discipleship that we're doing here, it takes time, right? It takes time, and it's not efficient time. I could be doing a lot more things versus that are going to seemingly feel like they're going to be more efficient than pouring into people one-on-one, because people are messy and it takes forever for somebody to like grow. Like you say, Brandon, it's that that slow growth as a part of it, but that's the most important. And as individuals, it's the same thing. Like it's going to take us time, and that's encouraging to know that, okay, we'll look back 6 months, a year, 5 years ago. How have I grown? Well, man, like okay, well, that's encouraging because I am growing. I am getting better. I am becoming closer to God and being more consistent, which for me is a huge thing. Is my walk is more consistent than it's ever been. And again, I think this group is a part of that as well. So, but cool. All right. Anything else?
I think one more thing, in line with that, is like when you're talking about, it's little achievements or whatever, to little bits of work that get you there. Sometimes I've noticed that when I fall away from being consistent with spending time with God and stuff, I feel like I should just automatically course correct and get right back to where I was. But another quote from Joe Rogan this time. He was talking about how
our godly
working
leader.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just random quote, but he was talking about when you're working out. You don't take somebody who's severely out of shape and you say, okay, go do 1,000 push-ups and 100 crunches and all that kind of stuff. You say, okay, we're gonna do 10 minutes today, and then that's it. And we're gonna do that for a week, 2 weeks, and then we're gonna ramp it up, and then we're gonna slowly work our way back. And the one thing that he said was, think about how slowly it took to get you to where you were. It's going to take that much time likely to get you back to where you were. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But within my spiritual walk, I've noticed that whenever I feel like I need to get back on it, then I feel like after a week I should be where I was. But it took me 3 months to get there, so I need to recognize that it's going to be a tedious, slower process to get back to where I was. It's not immediate.
Well, and so many times we set our goal, and the only thing that matters is that achievement. That, okay, I want to be able to do 1,000 push-ups, or I want to be able to do this or that, and we get so focused on the end that we forget that we actually, there's joy in the midst of the process. And that when we don't focus on the joy that's in the process, that we miss out on so much, because the likelihood is we may never reach, like we may not get there, or God may have something so much further for us, down the line. And we've kind of talked about this, like, what is God calling each of us to do leadership wise and challenging wise and pouring into other people wise? And if we look at, oh, well, I can only count myself successful if I've done this. Well, you don't know what God's going to do, but it's a part of the process to look back, like you said, Brandon, and to be able to see that growth over time. That when we get so focused on the end goal, we forget that, man, there's so much joy in that process of growing and being discipled in our faith. That's huge. So that's good. Cool. All right. Well, gentlemen, next week, drunkenness and sobriety. Okay. Well, if there's one, I will tell you right now, I probably don't struggle with, is that one. So I'm gonna be Eric next week, and y'all can we'll see how it
Wait,
goes.
you think
but-
we all struggle with?
No,
being
I'm just
drunk?
telling you, I'm gonna be Eric next week, and
No.
we can talk about it.
There'll
We
be
can
two
talk about it.
Erics next
Yeah, it'll
week.
be two Erics next week.
At least.
Cool.
Well, I guess I need to show up drunk.
Please don't. Please don't. Please don't. Cool. All right, gentlemen. Well, I'll see you in Call of Duty here in a minute.
Yep.
All right. Man, it was good. It was a really good conversation.